My spouse made an unexpected request when I was standing in the kitchen making dinner. "Would you divorce me?" Startled, I spun around. "What did you just say?" He didn't even bother to change out of his work clothes before stating clearly, "I want a divorce," and shoving the paperwork at me. "I've developed feelings for someone else. I have no choice because she's pregnant. With her, I want to start a family. She needs me and is pleased to look after me. Unlike you." His remarks were like a ton of bricks to me. Even with our recent marital difficulties, I never thought he would truly file for divorce. "Why would you say that, exactly?" I begged fervently. "I care about you and need you too." But it felt as though my words were ignored. "We're sorry, but you're no longer needed. Do you get it?" I was left alone with the divorce papers and heavily pregnant after his chilly comment. I ran into my ex-husband while out shopping at the mall 3 years later. "Is that not Kristen? Long time not seen. How is being a single mother going?" His arrogant manner and his boasts about his life without me made my fury boil. I remarried into a real estate family after that incident, and we had a son. I now have a happy home with my mother-in-law and new husband. I had ascended to the position of chief at the real estate company where my ex-husband worked. Thanks to fate, ironically, I didn't want to take retribution, even if it seemed ironic to see him there, but this unplanned meeting would prove to be his undoing. I said jokingly, "I never expected to find you working here." As fate continued its hilarious turns, "It's impressive that you're a chief at your age," he remarked as we searched for a convenient commute. Although we were only classmates in the same seminar and didn't interact much, I felt a pang of sympathy for him as he spoke to me in a friendly manner. However, being alumni of the same university, we found common ground during the apartment viewing. "Would you mind exchanging numbers? It's fun talking with you, Kristen," he asked, and I agreed, finding his company enjoyable. After several outings, we exchanged phone numbers, which eventually led to us dating. 2 years later, he proposed to me. The day my husband came to greet my parents, they welcomed him warmly. Despite his initial nervousness, Justin relaxed and smiled. "Please take good care of Kristen. She's a reliable and good kid," my father said. With a hint of pride, I blushed at his words, while my husband chuckled and reassured them of his intentions. My parents run a farmer's market along with neighboring farmers, a bustling spot along a main road. That evening, my siblings and their spouses joined us for a dinner party that turned into a merry drinking session. On the way home, my tipsy husband made a surprising remark. "You have a nice family," he mumbled, but I was surprised to learn that the farmer's market is Kristen's family business. I wasn't trying to hide it, I replied calmly. "Our family tradition dictates that the eldest son inherits everything, so it doesn't really concern me." Well, I guess there's no point in inheriting fields and a market. Kristen is the youngest daughter after all," he said, his words stinging a bit, but he soon drifted off to sleep, leaving me to focus on the road. Letting his comment fade into the background, as we headed to my in-laws' house in the next state, I found myself on edge during the 2-hour drive. I couldn't help but feel nervous, recalling my husband's previous nervousness when meeting my parents. He apologized, admitting he hadn't realized how nerve-wracking it could be. When I nervously pressed the doorbell upon arrival, my mother-in-law greeted me warmly, instantly easing my tension. "Christ, this guy has been an only child, so he's a bit spoiled. If he becomes too selfish, I'll scold him, so feel free to contact me anytime," she joked. My in-laws laughed, and my husband's face turned bright red. "Hey, stop it. That was when I was a kid. How old do you think I am now?" Even with the jokes, I was happy to join such a caring and intelligent family. I had no idea that the teasing comments about my husband's personality would eventually cause conflict in our union. My spouse and I started our marriage in the condo he owned, a location we both held great sentimental importance, given that I was also employed. We decided to divide living expenditures and domestic chores evenly, but as time went on, my spouse started to put up justifications and assign me additional domestic duties. When I was at my wit's end one day, my spouse proposed adjusting the guidelines. "I've been thinking, he suggested, maybe you could take care of all the housework, and I'll pay more of the living expenses." I thought that a marriage should be equal, but my husband seemed to think otherwise. "I feel like a married man when my wife takes care of the house. In addition, it makes me feel appreciated," he said. I no longer felt like arguing because I felt cornered. Well, doing chores for two wasn't that big of a deal anyway. I argued. However, my spouse quickly stopped taking any action at all and adopted a leave it mentality, scattering dishes, clothes, and other possessions wherever he used them. When my in-laws finally explained to me what they meant when they said he wants everything done for him, I couldn't help but feel let down. After giving my strategy some thought, I realized I might have made a few blunders. I would sometimes have my father-in-law chastise him over the phone, as per their suggestion, and somehow we were able to coexist together. But my father-in-law unexpectedly passed away from an acute myocardial infarction roughly 2 years after we were married. My mother-in-law was horrified because they were close, and worried family members started phoning my husband. "I can't let mom be alone, Kristen." I therefore considered bringing her to live with us here. "Is that acceptable?" he inquired, having a nice relationship with my mother-in-law. I understood and consented, but let's move to a larger location. This one is too small. Mom will also have an own room. All right, I'll look for some good properties, he said. We moved in with my mother-in-law 3 months following the passing of my father-in-law. "Thank you so much for sharing your home with me, Kristen. I never imagined he would pass away so quickly. I truly do miss him." My mother-in-law thanked me. "I also miss him. Together, the three of us, let's live well," I answered. My mother-in-law continued to spend a lot of time in her room even after moving in, but she eventually began to spend more time in the living room and her moods improved. But she started to pick up on some tendencies that she had previously missed. One evening, she said, "Hey, did you always eat dinner this late?" "Sorry, since the store closes at 6:00 p.m., by the time I clean up and return home, it ends up being this late," I said. She decided that dinner after 8:00 p.m. was too late, and the following day she began assisting with dinner preparation and housekeeping duties. However, her assistance was met with more scrutiny. "Isn't it a sign of insensitivity on the part of a married person to return home at this late hour? Shouldn't you give up your work and concentrate on taking care of the house now that you're living with me?" she said. "I apologize," I said. "I thought I'd work until we have children to save up," which prompted her to ask further questions. "I take it you've been married for more than 2 years. Are you really considering having kids?" she said. "I don't know when something might happen to me, so please let me see my grandchild soon," she said. My spouse and I looked at each other, and we both knew we had no intention of having children. Therefore, we had been utilizing contraception for the previous 2 years. My spouse said to me in a whisper before I went to bed that night, "Maybe mom is lonely without any friends here." We began contemplating the idea of starting a family seriously. We decided to let nature take its course by stopping the use of contraception and trying to conceive. However, as it often happens, the journey wasn't as straightforward as we hoped. Months passed without any signs of pregnancy, leading to growing anxiety on my part. My husband's mood worsened, and he started to express frustration, questioning why we couldn't conceive. Tensions rose as blame subtly entered our conversations, casting a shadow over our relationship. Realizing the strain this was putting on us, I initiated a heartfelt conversation with my husband, suggesting we seek professional guidance together. We visited a fertility clinic, making a pact not to assign blame regardless of the results. Surprisingly, tests revealed no issues on either of our ends. This revelation brought relief, and just 3 months later, we received the joyous news of my pregnancy. With this newfound certainty, I made the decision to leave my job of a decade, confident that we could manage on my husband's salary alone. When the pregnancy progressed, there were shifts in attitudes around us. My mother-in-law, initially distant, became a source of support, urging me to prioritize my health and the baby's well-being. However, the change wasn't limited to her alone. My husband's demeanor seemed to fluctuate, from initial enthusiasm to a more detached stance. His reactions to my struggles with morning sickness revealed a strain in our relationship, reminiscent of our earlier fertility journey. Frustration and blame resurfaced, but this time directed at me, as hormonal changes brought about mood swings and discomfort. His remarks, though hurtful, echoed societal expectations of gender roles in parenting. Despite these challenges, we remained committed to navigating this journey together, hoping that with time, understanding, and patience, we would find our way. My sensitivity to my husband's words escalated into frequent, heated arguments. One particularly stressful day, I began bleeding, sending me into a panic. Although there was no harm to the baby, I was overwhelmed with tears. My mother-in-law, who accompanied me to the hospital, offered gentle words of wisdom. Perhaps it's best for you to spend some time at your parents' house until things settle. A little distance might help both of you regain clarity. Her suggestion resonated with me, and despite being at the end of my first trimester, I decided to heed her advice. The physical distance provided a much-needed reprieve, allowing me to find solace and embrace the serenity of impending motherhood. However, with my absence, my husband's behavior seemed to shift. As noted by my observant mother-in-law, he grew increasingly absent, deepening the divide between us. I returned home closer to the time of delivery, having maintained minimal contact with my husband during my stay with my parents. Despite feeling a twinge of relief when he reached out, his call stirred a mix of emotions, leading to tears fueled by hormonal fluctuations. With a newfound resolve, I returned home, eager to reconnect with my husband and mend our strained relationship. Upon my return, I was met with warm greetings, yet I couldn't shake the subtle change in atmosphere. My mother-in-law's usual warmth seemed tinged with sadness, despite her assurances of support. As my husband arrived home late into the night, I couldn't help but notice the unfamiliar scent lingering on him, casting doubts and fueling my anxieties. When he drifted off to sleep beside me, the unanswered questions lingered, leaving me to ponder the reality of our relationship and the challenges ahead. When my husband slept soundly beside me, the following day unfolded with my mother-in-law announcing her plans to visit her sister overnight, leaving me alone at home. Determined to mend our strained relationship, I decided to prepare a special meal for my husband, hoping to bridge the growing divide between us. Lost in the rhythm of frying chicken in the kitchen, I was startled by my husband's unexpected question from behind me. "Would you divorce me?" His words pierced through the air, catching me off guard amidst the sizzle of the cooking oil. Stunned, I turned to face him, struggling to comprehend his sudden request for a divorce, especially with our baby's arrival imminent. He was holding divorce papers and he was shoving them in my direction without changing into his new clothing from the night before. He admitted to falling in love with another woman, who was also expecting, and asserted that, in contrast to me, she was prepared to provide him the support and care he needed. His remarks broke the thin optimism I'd grown to hold, causing me to grab for comprehension and beg him to think again. My voice was filled with desperation as I made fruitless attempts to reason with him, but it sounded as though my requests were ignored. He gave his reasons for wanting to quit his current employment, pointing out that working for her company would be appealing because it provided stability and support. It occurred to me that maybe our relationship had deeper divisions than I had previously thought. His news was even more shocking since it suddenly became clear to me why my mother-in-law had approved of the divorce and why she had been acting strangely. The frantic sputtering of frying oil resonated around the once peaceful kitchen, reflecting my inner turmoil. Turning to face my spouse, I was at a loss for words as a whirlwind of emotions whirled around inside me. I said, a little sad, "We're expecting a baby soon." The last glimmer of optimism I had was dashed by his icy, unwavering response. "I'll leave the child to you. We'll discuss compensation and child support at a later time. I'm heading to her place, so please gather your belongings by tonight and vacate tomorrow." "Are you relinquishing your role as a father?" "Exactly. I don't want a child from a financially unstable partner." With those words, my husband departed, leaving me with divorce papers and my heavily pregnant self in the silent house. Anger and frustration threatened to overwhelm me. I screamed, releasing the pent-up emotions before collapsing onto the kitchen floor in tears. In that moment, I yearned to leave behind all resentment, hatred, sadness, and pain within those walls. After a cathartic cry, I phoned my older brother for assistance. Subsequently, through legal channels, we negotiated compensation with my husband, but his mistress never surfaced. The total amount for compensation and child support surpassed $100,000, a significant sum that left my husband seemingly unfazed. "That amount will suffice. In return, I demand complete separation from our past," he declared. Bracing myself for further conditions, I listened when he outlined his terms: secrecy regarding the affair-driven divorce and abstention from probing into his personal life. "If you agree to keep our split confidential, I'll provide the compensation and child support as a lump sum," he proposed, his eyes meeting mine without deceit. I found solace in the simplicity of the offer, I had no desire to delve into his affairs. Accepting his terms meant a clean break, which suited me fine, very well. I accept those terms, however. In exchange, I demand the same, no further involvement with me or our child, I countered firmly, meeting his gaze. After a brief pause, he nodded silently, true to his word. The following week, a lump sum was deposited into my account, marking the official end of our 4-year marriage. 3 years have since passed. Despite the turmoil, my daughter and I found refuge at my parents' home. Though it burdened my family, their unwavering support carried us through. Healing took time, but the presence of my daughter served as a beacon of hope, guiding me through the darkest of days. Currently, I'm collaborating with my younger brother. A few years back, he initiated a property management venture. However, our returns prompted us to diversify into real estate sales and leasing, adding to the breadth of our business. It's kept us busy, yet it's a fulfilling journey. One day, while I was browsing through a mall, I unexpectedly encountered my ex-husband, Christian. "Long time no see," he greeted, his smirk unsettling. "How's life as a single mother? Your family struggled financially, didn't they? I assume you're still facing challenges." His demeanor displeased me. Without prompting, he began boasting about his life post-divorce. Uninterested, I remained silent, but he perceived it as an invitation to continue. "I've remarried," he announced to the daughter of a real estate agent. "We have a son, and life is splendid. I'm now part of my wife's family business, set for life." Feeling envious, "Huh, make sure you work hard for your child's sake." His condescending laughter echoed as he flaunted his newfound success. "Which real estate agency?" he asked, with a hint of arrogance. "Brown Real Estate. You must have heard of it, right?" Despite my annoyance, I couldn't help but smile at the mention of the familiar name. "Ah, so you married into that family?" I remarked casually, handing him my business card. His expression soured swiftly, the irony not lost on either of us. Fate had a peculiar sense of humor. We hadn't seen each other in 3 years, and here we are, I mused, running into each other at Foster Real Estate. His face paled at the mention of my workplace. Unbeknownst to him, my family's ties with Brown Real Estate ran deep. My grandfather and the previous CEO were close allies, managing land for generations. However, rumors of mismanagement plagued the company since the CEO's passing. "Your work quality seems to be declining," I remarked, noting the increasing complaints from clients. The realization dawned on him. The once promising CEO was now dubbed the clueless CEO. In local real estate circles, his pursuit of quick profits with insufficient staff had tarnished the company's reputation. Client concerns had also directly affected my father. My younger brother, who has experience in the real estate sector, made the decision to launch a management company in order to assist. Because of this, it was a major advancement over the previous few years. I figured there was no use in carrying on this talk with my dejected ex-husband. "I'm leaving now," I said, my head heaving with old grudges. "From now on, refrain from calling out to me if you see me. I'm bothered by you." I walked away, ignoring his pathetic attempts to stop me. I didn't mean to take revenge for what had occurred to him then, but this reunion would bring him to ruin. When I got home, I told my parents and my 2 brothers about my meeting with my ex-husband. "His partner was the daughter from the Brown place," I said. "Since the president is no longer with us, I am unable to complain, but I cannot forgive this. We were merciful because of the past. Dad, can we stop now?" My younger brother said something. I concur. "Let's break our relationship with Brown Real Estate." My dad agreed. There has been a running theme in our home for the last few months. My younger brother's business had taken over much of the family's land and building management, but because of a long-standing relationship, some of the property was still retained by Brown Real Estate. After this episode, everyone agreed to transfer everything to my younger brother's business. "We might still be dealing with him if you hadn't met him today," my father joked, seeing the irony in the circumstance. My ex-husband seemed to be a thing of the past, and I finally felt relieved. If there's a god of fate, they must love playing tricks, I thought. But 2 months or so later, I got a call from my ex-husband, who I had assumed was history. I mistakenly answered it, assuming it was from a client, even though it was from an unknown number. "Kristen, please save me," he begged. "Your family pulled out, therefore you're the only one who can help me at this point. I have to labor for free right now. Could you please give back the $100,000 that I gave you back then? It's genuinely awful." Every day a voice informed me of the reality before I could say anything else. "What topic are you discussing?" "You know, The most of that was child support, I understand, but my wife's business will kill me if I don't give back that money. Help me, please, he pleaded. What an idiot. The former president, who was known for lavishing attention on his daughter, gave the money to his lover's father in one large payment, with the hope of seeing his daughter happy. He had paid child support and compensation, but there was just no way, without any assurance, he would act in this manner. He was required to pay back the entire amount if he got divorced and betrayed his daughter. If he was unable to, the reimbursement would come from working at the real estate company until the child was an adult. That's what they agreed upon. The former president didn't trust the man who had an affair, so he used brutal methods to make sure his daughter was happy. I said to her over the phone, "Maybe it's better for you to keep working as you are now. You will be required to pay the same amount of child support and alimony if you are divorced. It will be easy for you to find housing if you are the daughter of a real estate agent, and you do, in fact, work." My ex-husband was crying when he begged on the other end of the phone, "Please." She stopped caring about me after the baby was born and focused all of her attention on the child. I now live and sleep in the office and am receiving terrible treatment. I couldn't hold back my laughter. The daughter of Brown Real Estate was said to have the ability to ruin men with her care, and it appeared to be true. It seems that once they were married, her attention switched from her spouse to their child. "Are you aware of my deep love for you?" my ex-husband went on, his tone disturbing. "I realize it now. My mom also feels guilty about betraying you. Why can't we begin again? You are still loved by me." I shuddered at the eerie whisper. "It is not possible for us to begin over. It was you who abandoned us. Money had blinded you. This is the life you picked." I was tired of hearing him cry in my ear and shot back, "Don't say disgusting things," I firmly stated. "Don't you ever call me again." Hanging up the phone and refusing to take his calls going forward, I thought that was the last of it, but thinking back on my ex-husband's actions made me feel down. My ex-husband unexpectedly showed up at my parents' place 3 days later. My uneasy instinct appeared to be accurate. He also brought his mother, who appeared a lot older than she had 3 years prior. "Kristen, I apologize really." Instead of requesting money, he begged for pardon, saying, "I've thought about what I did and I want your forgiveness." As anticipated, my ex-husband began to voice unpleasant remarks. Reflecting on it, I realized my happiest moments were with you. If you're still unattached, perhaps we could start anew with our child. The thought of enjoying your fried chicken again crossed my mind, but it only fueled my anger, recalling the sizzle of frying oil. On that day, there's a limit to one's tolerance for ridicule. "Kristen, I deeply regret what transpired before." Upon learning she was the daughter of a company president, I naively hoped for my son's secure future, but I see now the error in my thinking. I also desire to know my grandchild. Though her betrayal once shook me, now her words hold no weight. I couldn't fathom my ex-husband bringing his elderly mother along. "I'll never forgive you, nor permit you to meet my child. Please leave." My fiancé emerged upon hearing my raised voice. Puzzled by the commotion, confusion struck my ex-husband and his mother upon realizing my marital status. With my fiancé's protective arm around me, they were warned not to disrupt our happiness. Witnessing my ex-husband's despair, I revealed the consequences of his past actions. He went silent, seemingly forgetting certain truths. "Stay away from me and my child forever," I asserted, threatening to expose his affair if he persisted. Trembling and pale, he pleaded for forgiveness, promising to keep his distance. With hurried apologies, he escorted his bewildered mother away, leaving the scene. I doubted they would ever visit again. Perhaps there were further clauses in the contract I held with the previous president. After their departure, my fiancé and I exchanged relieved glances. Later, news circulated that the president of Brown Real Estate had been ousted due to poor performance. However, rebuilding trust proved challenging. Meanwhile, my ex-husband continued to toil at the now short-staffed company. And even my ex-mother-in-law found herself cleaning managed apartments daily. Their pursuit of a secure future through marriage yielded the opposite result. I hope my ex-husband relinquishes his fantasies of eternal adoration and begins to prioritize his family. True happiness eludes those who persist in blaming others. I am set to marry a junior colleague of my younger brother, who happens to work at the same company. He adores my daughter as if she were his own. Let's embark on a journey of familial bliss together, the three of us. I vow to protect both of you with my life. After a tumultuous divorce 3 years ago, I am determined to build a loving family, while also repaying the support we've received from our extended family. That's all about the first story, and now let's watch another similar story. Just as I was on the brink of uncovering Tom's infidelity, Susan, his mistress, brazenly moved into our home. Fueled by anger and hurt, I made the decision to leave, opting to live with my own lover instead. Asserting our financial responsibility, I informed Tom that we would handle the mortgage payments. Despite his nonchalant attitude, I reminded him of the substantial burden the mortgage imposed. With a significant increase in my annual income, I assured him that I could manage the financial obligations without him. His indifferent response stung. Dismissing my contributions to our shared lifestyle, Tom's accusatory finger pointed in my direction when he declared his independence, instructing me to vanish from his sight forever. Resigned to my fate, I murmured my acceptance, acknowledging the hefty monthly mortgage looming over my departure. Reflecting on the past, I, Linda, a 47-year-old housewife, recalled the decade that had passed since my marriage to Tom. Initially drawn to his charm and capability, I found solace in our shared dreams and values. Despite my reservations about marriage, I embraced our union eagerly. Transitioning to freelance work allowed me the flexibility to support Tom's ambitions while pursuing my own. Together, we built our dream home, albeit with some apprehension about the financial strain it would impose. However, in the comfort of our cozy abode, the serenity of our shared moments with Tom overshadowed any doubts. A few years later, Tom's actual personality started to show. His reckless behavior with money grew more and more apparent. Especially when we went shopping, he would throw things into the basket carelessly, thinking I would pay for it. Look, there's a bargain on domestic meat. Let's grab some, Linda, for dinner tonight. How about braised yellowtail? Sushi can wait until tomorrow. Oh, and there are also sweet potato shochu and fine whiskey for sale. His reckless spending practices destroyed our carefully constructed budget and sent our costs skyrocketing. Every weekend, even though I tried to stop him, Tom persisted on going with me to the grocery store, costing me more than $100 in needless spending. Upon confronting him about his expenditures, he threw money and the receipt onto the desk with a contemptuous attitude. He joked, "Here you go, you're such a miser." Angry, I pointed out that he had a respectable salary of his own and urged that he pay for his ostentatious expenditures. His reply, a sigh and a tirade against my housewifery and his demand for a higher monthly allowance, ensued. "Even $1,000 isn't enough," he grumbled, making reference to his social duties and the requirement to look out for those under him. I showed him our family budget on a computer software. Since I could take his conceited behavior no longer, he grudgingly accepted to follow it, though with some reluctance. Crossing his arms in frustration, he conceded, "Fine, do you agree?" However, an ultimatum followed. "Consider it, for a spouse to make less money than his wife is unusual. You won't be able to treat me with such defiance if I make more money than you do." I was dumbfounded by Tom's audaciousness. "Are you implying you'll be even busier?" I countered, incredulous. "You hardly contribute to household chores as it is. If anything, you should step up since you're at home all day." His arrogance left me speechless. Despite working from home, I maintained a strict schedule and had my own workload to manage. It wasn't as if I spent my days idling about, seeking to address our financial issues. I proposed a solution to keep our finances separate going forward. Each of us would transfer a fixed amount from our salaries into a joint account for savings, while the remainder would cover living expenses, including the mortgage and taxes, based on our individual incomes. "Sounds reasonable," Tom agreed, seemingly intrigued by the idea. With the allowance amount and items agreed upon, the matter of his allowance ceased to be a point of contention. Subsequently, Tom refrained from joining me on shopping trips, and our budgeting woes gradually subsided. However, another source of trouble lingered in the form of my mother-in-law. Despite living alone, she frequently summoned Tom for trivial tasks, disrupting our peace. Though I had initially feared she might move in with us after we got married, thankfully, that hadn't come to pass. However, her dependence on Tom remained evident, with frequent requests for assistance and companionship. Furthermore, Tom's unwavering devotion to his mother, particularly on special occasions like Mother's Day and her birthday, often left me feeling sidelined. Though I harbored silent resentment. I understood that expressing anger would be futile. What truly irked me was Tom's tendency to compare me to his mother lately. His absence during late weeknights and his preoccupation with work-related socializing or phone distractions on weekends only exacerbated the strain on our relationship. It was a stark contrast to the promises he had made before we married. Vowing to share household responsibilities now, he conveniently uses work as an excuse to evade household responsibilities entirely. Even on his days off, dragged from his slumber by the aroma of food, he grumbles incessantly. I can't stand miso soup every morning, he complains. Leafy vegetables make me feel like a caterpillar, and this potato salad is dry and tasteless. I was craving something with a soy sauce flavor tonight, not salted fried chicken stew. It's such a lazy meal. His criticisms always culminate with the comparison to his mother's cooking prowess. My mom used to put more effort into making delicious meals. Besides the main dish, I want at least 3 sides. His demands have escalated recently. I'll be sending money to my mom with my bonus, so take care of it, he announces casually, catching me off guard. When I inquire about his mother's financial situation, he explains her desire for more leisure activities. She doesn't have enough money to go on trips or to the theater with her friends every month. He elaborates, irritated by his expectation for me to shoulder more work. I bite back the impulse to protest. Why should I work harder for your mother's enjoyment? I almost retort, but swallow my words. Juggling an increased workload is already taxing, and sacrificing sleep to meet deadlines has become the norm. Tom's response to my frustration is dismissive. You have it easier. We don't have kids, he retorts, oblivious to the workload I bear. But Tom, you only work, I counter, highlighting my dual roles. Ah, I see, he concedes, suggesting his mother move into offset our expenses. His proposal hangs in the air, leaving me grappling with resignation. Okay, I'll increase my workload to cover the bonus, as long as you understand. I relent, masking my irritation when he smirks in response. Here's the lunchbox, wash it, he instructs before retreating upstairs, leaving me stewing in frustration. All of a sudden, he recalled and gave the bag to me from his rucksack. Today, as I reluctantly opened the lunch bag, I saw a pretty pink message inside once more. I appreciate you creating the devoted wife's lunchbox every time. The score for today is 80, Tom stated. The omelet needed to be sweeter, and the fried chicken was overly chewy. Tom prefers that, I mumbled. Were these leftovers from the meal? You ought to work harder, I said to Tom, with a startled expression. He replied, that comes from a female subordinate. She offers me advice and is worried about my health. Then why don't you have her make it from now on? I recommended. Avoid being foolish. Wives are supposed to make lunch? Tom sulked. Are you really that nervous? Are you cheating on her with her? He screamed at me. It's shameful for an old lady to be jealous of someone your age. While we're talking about it, Linda, allow me to say this. You bug me nonstop. I didn't ask you to look after me in this way. Give me a little more time to myself, he said. You would neglect yourself if I left you by yourself. Quickly take a bath, please, I begged. I am aware. Tom murmured angrily, so annoying, and went to his bed. Tom appeared to have changed his attitude after disclosing the affair. His harsh remarks stayed with me, sometimes haunting me until I fell asleep and drenching my pillow in tears. Naturally, a wife would want her spouse to look well, and then the agony of having someone else criticize my thoughtfully packed lunchbox, which took into account the color and nutritional balance, in a patronizing way. Tom, not being a cook, is unlikely to comprehend. After a while, Tom, who had left on a business trip, sent me a message at last. Released from the pestering, let's get the work done swiftly and enjoy ourselves. Anticipating entering the outdoor thermal spring alongside you. Love you, it said. I stood motionless for a long time, holding onto my phone. He was obviously being unfaithful. Presumably, notes in the lunchbox were left by the other woman. Though my love for Tom had entirely cooled, my anger at being misled was still blazing. I confronted Tom with my phone screen when he got home, and he readily admitted it. I'm tired of women who are caregivers like you. Will you please allow me some freedom? He said. I was stunned by Tom, visibly angry despite his infidelity. It sounded as if I was the one at fault. Days passed with us not speaking to each other. Then, one weekend afternoon while I was reading a book, the doorbell rang through the intercom. The moving company spoke. Hello, we'll be moving your belongings now. As I stood there dumbfounded, Tom hurried down the stairs and pushed past me to respond. Thank You, please do. Ignoring my bewildered state, after laying down blue safety blankets, the movers began moving in cardboard boxes in a white dresser. A lovely voice interrupted, apologizing for oversleeping and being late. Tom, at the door, a young woman revealed her face. Tom heard her and came running over to say, "Good morning, Susan, you continue to look adorable." Ah, Susan, the person Tom was messaging. The two of them flirted and entwined their arms, not even trying to disguise their friendship from me. Susan responded, "You look cool too, Tom." Tom answered, "Oh, please take that to the bedroom upstairs." Susan ordered the movers to bring everything from the truck inside as she stormed into the house. Tom and Susan came to me hand in hand when the transfer was over. I questioned, "What is all this? You still don't get it." Tom grinned, mocking my rage. "This is the reason I detest ignorant people." "We ought to be explicit." Tom sighed, turned to face me, and said, "I'm moving in with my lover, so get out." Followed by Susan, "We are going to pay the mortgage." I blinked as I watched the crates being carried inside. They actually meant to throw me out. At least that was how vaguely I understood what they were preparing. "I don't mind, but you know the mortgage is quite expensive, right?" I stated. "You're not getting it, are you?" "In comparison to a few years ago, my yearly income has increased." Tom shot back, "I can pay off the mortgage with ease." "Oh, is that accurate? So I guess that's okay." "First of all, it was all my fault that you were able to become independent. You barely made it through the few clients I introduced you to. If not, you would have given up long ago." "To a certain extent, I appreciate it," I said firmly. Tom went on arrogantly, "But the constant work I receive is thanks to my own skills. In essence, you ought to show me greater respect." Tom gestured at me, saying, "It's because I married you that you've been able to live comfortably in such a chic house every day. Yet you dare to lecture me and talk back all the time. I no longer require someone similar to you. Never reveal your face again, then I'll leave." Even though the mortgage is $4,000 a month, I shrugged. I got really upset while I was putting necessities in a trunk. I felt like screaming while I diligently took care of the housework and worked tirelessly, sparing no time for sleep. "You were infatuated with a young mistress. You will fully receive the retribution for betraying me." I went straight to a real estate agent to transfer the deed of the land and house into Tom's name. After renting an apartment, I returned to the house while Susan and Tom were at work, packed my belongings, and had them moved to my room by movers. When I told Lily what was going on, she appeared as though she had been stung by a bitter bug. "When building the house, your income was higher than Tom's, right?" she inquired. "Yes, it was. Since the mortgage would not have been granted otherwise, it was placed in your name." I answered, "Yeah." Tom doesn't seem to understand that passing the mortgage assessment as a freelancer means having a stable income and a good reputation. Lily stated with a sigh, "Exactly. With a little investigation, anyone would discover how well known you are in the field." I sighed and sipped my tea. "Is Tom's salary higher than yours now?" Lily asked. "Maybe it's true, but if it is, he hands out cash the moment his mother asks." $4,000 a month will be difficult," I said, "since it's deducted from your account." "Maybe he forgot how much is being paid monthly," offered Lily. "I believe that." I nodded. "He's always been irresponsible with money. If he can't afford the mortgage once it's in his name, what will he do? Will an auction be held for it?" Lily regretfully inquired. "Yes, unfortunately, but there's nothing to be done about it," I responded. "I take it Tom is capable at his job. He is, after all, one of our clients." Lily reflected. "Not only is he loved by the female staff, but his superiors and male juniors obviously admire him too. When we were dating, he was considerate. He helped me with my work as well." I reflected. "Are you going to discuss divorce proceedings now?" Asking Lily. "Yes, I will engage legal counsel and begin alimony negotiations. I must also look into Susan, the salesperson, as past. She looked shrewd when I saw her earlier." "Take caution," I said. "Yes, thank you," Lily said with a nod. A week later, I was back at my flat, having enjoyed my conversation with Lily when I perused the photos of Susan provided by the detective agency. An unfamiliar number lit up my phone screen. Out of curiosity, I answered, only to find Susan on the other end. "Do something about Tom," she exclaimed, launching into a tirade about his disheveled appearance in the mornings. With a soft chuckle, I explained, "That's just the real Tom. Unless you constantly nag him, he won't bother." Susan fell silent, muttering about his resistance to basic hygiene. "That's why he found me annoying when I nagged about it," I elaborated, detailing how I meticulously cared for his appearance. Disbelief tinged Susan's voice when she questioned the necessity of spelling out such things to an adult. Yes, if you don't like it, why not break up, I suggested, but Susan wouldn't fall for that. A handsome, high-earning man with a house and a yard is a catch, she reasoned, determined to change Tom. Good luck with that, I remarked dryly. Oh, I'm coming over tomorrow. I have something to discuss with both Tom and you, I declared. Susan hesitated but eventually agreed, albeit reluctantly, upon my arrival. Tom openly displayed his displeasure, eager to get the conversation over with. Glancing at the calendar on the wall, I noted, "Today's your birthday, isn't it, Tom?" He confirmed it, urging us to make it brief. "Have you told her yet?" I prodded, causing Tom to squirm uncomfortably. "I was going to tell her later," he mumbled. Sensing the tension, I redirected the conversation. "You're going out to eat together, right? You've made reservations?" I asked. Susan, puzzled, interrupted, annoyed by my interjection. "Can you just be quiet for a second?" she snapped. "It's your mother-in-law's favorite place, right?" I revealed, realizing Tom hadn't disclosed this detail to her. Suppressing a laugh, I disclosed to Susan the tradition of Tom having dinner with his mother every year on his birthday. He cancels all other plans for that day and spends the night with her until the next morning, I continued, watching as Susan's mouth dropped open in shock. "And it's the same for his mother's birthday, Mother's Day, and Christmas. Susan, you must have noticed, right?" As I spoke, I laid out photos on the dining table. Susan gave the pictures a serious grimace. "Absolutely amazing," she whispered. "Avoid pulling that face. Birthdays are a way for me to give thanks to my mother for bearing me." Tom shot back, blushing. The pictures showed Tom grinning and strolling close to his mother. Tom gave Susan a fierce look and said, "My mother and I cherish every memory we have of these days. It's a wonderful thing to value one's parents, isn't it? It's not fair to condemn me for it, I get that, but shopping arm in arm, taking cheek-to-cheek photos, and having candlelit romantic dinners with your mother is a bit much, don't you think?" Susan raised her voice to a scream as she peered down at the pictures. The scenes appeared less like mother-son trips and more like dates with an older woman because Tom's mother, who looked youthful for her age, was present. "Is dating my mother wrong? She's been lonely since Dad died and wants me to be around. I have to do everything in my power to make her happy," Tom asserted. Wow, he really mentioned dating. I had to bite my tongue. "So this is how it's always been, getting ignored while defending mother's priorities, even having reserved fine dining establishments for Tom's birthday or Christmas," Susan begged Tom, her eyes welling with tears. "And all those times you canceled our dates for work. It was actually to do errands for your mom or prioritize something for her." "Yes, that's correct," Tom said without hesitation. "Who's more important to you, me or your mother?" Susan pressed, shaky in voice. Tom answered, "My mom, of course," in a detached way. "What, you're a sloppy mama's boy, but I thought you were cool, smart, nice, and amazing. What a letdown. So why don't you call it quits?" I laughed and teasingly said, "I don't need him anymore either." To Susan's slouched shoulders, "Oh, and he gives his mom $5,000 from his bonus, apart from gifts for anniversaries," I said casually. Susan's shocked eyes grew wider. "What, he pays her $10,000 a year?" she cried. "Yes, indeed, that is absurd. There won't be as much for me," Susan said, covering her mouth quickly and appearing pallid. I took advantage of the occasion to arrange pictures of Susan from a sizable envelope on the table. "Susan, you know I hate gambling, right?" Studies had revealed that Susan routinely went to casinos on her days off. Tom's expression changed considerably when he browsed through the pictures. "Slots, horse racing, boat racing, you're doing every kind of gambling. Whatever, it serves as my method of decompressing." Susan shot back, "I don't mean to meddle in personal fun, but indulging to the point of debt isn't advisable," I warned. My comments caused Susan's cheeks to tighten up. She shot back, "Why do you even know about that? You pleaded with Tom to purchase those branded goods, which you later sold at flea markets to settle bills." "Correct. Actually, you do frequently misplace the purses and accessories I get you." With a sardonic smirk, I said, "Don't tell me you've actually been selling them." I smiled knowingly as Susan started to perspire heavily. "Oh, that makes sense. I overheard your staff conversing with my friend Lily. Susan, who is spoiled by her lover, has been selling name-brand stuff to offset her debt. Such things spread like wildfire across the office. Therefore you should avoid discussing them with your coworkers." I gave Susan a stern look, and she gave me some advice. Mama's boy. Even though I believed I had found a decent cash cow, I'm better off without you. I can quickly find someone else because I'm cute, Susan yelled. I'll find another man right away. As she grabbed her bag and jacket and stormed out of the house. I'll send the bill to you later, Susan. Make sure you pay it, I said as she turned to retreat. Tom reluctantly consented to the divorce when I used a lawyer to demand alimony. The entire amount was moved to my account after gaining some new clients and building my finances over a few months. I was thinking about buying an apartment when I got a call from Tom. What's this about a $4,000 monthly mortgage? How am I meant to make this payment? Tom could barely talk on the phone. This was the time I had been expecting his call. When we decided on the monthly payments, you were right there beside me, listening to the conversation, weren't you? I'm sorry, but I can't recall any of that. At both our home and the bank, the details seemed to slip my mind. You were the one handling it all, and I must admit, I wasn't paying much attention. Why is the amount so high, anyway? Is this some sort of rip-off? Suppressing my irritation, I patiently explained I had been aiming to keep it around $1,000 a month. However, you, Tom, kept pushing for more extravagant features from the house builder. It's meant to be a once-in-a-lifetime home, yes. But shouldn't we have communicated our wishes better to avoid any regrets? Tom boasted. You only suggested mundane additions like a pantry or a sunroom. It was my ideas that added the unique and luxurious elements. You should be grateful for my contributions in making our home special. Feeling my annoyance rise, I continued. I expressed my desires for a rooftop, a soundproof room for guitar practice, and a study adjacent to my room, all with custom-made interiors. I also insisted on a location just a 5-minute walk from the ST station, on a southwest corner lot, with parking space for 4 cars. Of course, commissioning such detailed and unique construction, including the cost of the land, would result in a mortgage of several $1,000s a month. Well, yes, but at the time, you could afford it, so it didn't seem like an issue, Tom replied nonchalantly. And now you're saying you can't afford the $4,000 mortgage with your current income? I asked, sensing Tom's momentum fade into silence. I could afford it without any trouble if you come back and help with the living expenses, Tom finally said, his voice trailing off. I was hearing things that I couldn't believe. Tom stumbled on, actually, my mom suggested that we live together. I let Susan have the furnishings after we broke up. Upon mentioning that I'm living alone and have additional space, my mother expressed her desire to move in with me. It seemed like a nice idea because her house is growing older, so I agreed. That's kind of you, but the house will go up for auction if I can't afford the mortgage. The mortgage will remain in place even if we sell the house. How am I meant to tell Mom about this? I inquired as a knot of nervousness started to grow. Just tell her the truth, Tom said. How about renovating the in-law house and living there together? But you don't have the money for renovation, do you? I retaliated. That's not possible, Tom answered with haste. I am a proud son to my mother. The truth is that my wife was actually paying the mortgage and had a larger income. My affair is the reason for our impending divorce and the loss of our home. How embarrassing is that? Do you intend to embarrass me? Tom insisted fervently. But it's the truth. You should come back. Just because I had a few affairs over 3 years, you're making it into a big deal. Every man has a mistress or two. It's not like I got anyone pregnant. Let bygones be bygones. I was left speechless with disbelief. I refuse, I declared firmly. I'm thinking of moving into a high-rise condo. I have no intention of returning to that house. A high-rise condo. How can a mere freelance web designer afford that? Tom retorted. Who's the one earning less than a mere freelance web designer? Don't contact me again. From now on, communicate through a lawyer, I asserted, hanging up the phone and blocking Tom's contact. In addition to her pension, the stay-at-home mother-in-law also depended on the $10,000 from Tom. They could never pay off the mortgage on the house. I assumed that was the end of it. But my mother-in-law called the following day before I could say anything. She begged in a mournful voice, Linda, please help Tom. Aren't we all related? Are you not making a respectable living? Please settle the mortgage on the residence. I said something, trying not to show my growing distaste. Since we got divorced, we're strangers. How chilly. That's just not acceptable. After everything Tom has done for you, the mother-in-law cried out. Tom was the one who deceived me and got me out of the house. And I was the one who had to pay the mortgage. Put an end to your drama about a small affair. It's shameful. the mother-in-law said, as if to say what a difficult person. You are not required to cohabitate. I don't want to live with you anyway, so I'll move in. All I'm asking is that you cover the mortgage, she begged. Just comply quietly. I'm begging you. Sounding like a mother calming a young kid, I now genuinely realized that the homeowner ought to be the one making the payments. I refuse again, I said. All right, you miser, the mother-in-law spit out. That's why Tom cheated on you with your unattractive personality. Before hanging up, naturally, I blocked the mother-in-law right away. Lily later shared an amazing tale with me. Security officers reportedly spotted Susan attempting to remove money from the company safe, and she was taken into custody. Her gambling debts went out of control after she broke up with Tom, driving her to desperation. In the web news, Susan appeared utterly haggard, with no remnant of her former attractiveness. Tom's mortgage application was denied as anticipated, and the house was put up for auction. Tom continued to live in his parents' home while making mortgage payments even after the property sold. Susan also told the police that she was forced to steal the money by Tom. They also asked Tom some questions. Susan's allegation turned out to be a total fabrication, therefore Tom was soon let free. All of the staff was aware of their relationship, though, so Tom immediately lost credibility. Tom was made to voluntarily quit from the company because he felt uncomfortable around Susan, who was placed on probation. Afterwards, Tom had trouble paying his mortgage by working several part-time jobs. His mother continued to lavishly spend his wages even after she became aware of his struggles. Tom tried to persuade his mother, but she wouldn't listen, which frequently resulted in noisy arguments between the parents that disturbed the neighbors. I moved into the high-rise condo of my dreams and began enjoying a comfortable single life. I picked a place that fit my personal preferences, as opposed to the prior house that was full of Tom's wishes. Although busy, work is rewarding. I treasure the small pleasure of using all of my earnings for myself. I still think I have a lot to learn, so I'm going to keep improving my talents and developing my design sense. Above is today's story. If you like it, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. See you next time.